So there's a very specific order in how to do this, and I'll take you through it. So first off, I'm about to skip a step, and I'll tell you why. The step that's called out is put the feet in the bottom. Well, I happen to be using a part that I was using a different foot. So this is the one time in the video where I'm going to say, well, I'm not going to put this in the hole right now when I tell you to on the instructions. I'm going to put these feet aside, and you're going to know that I made one exception, the feet. So I'm going to skip past the feet right now. But I'll show you the rest of all of this. So turn that off. And again, I am purposefully taking longer to consult my drawing so that it's exactly like I told you in the drawing, or it's exactly the order that I used in the drawing. So right after you get the rubber feet on, I ask you to put together the Z-frame plate. So the Z-frame plate is here. This is what we call the Z-frame plate. And this works in concert with some other parts to keep it nice and stiff. So let's put some of these together. Now the rod, the 8mm rod I was using for the Z here, these are my two rods. On the bottom, one of these are going to go into the plate here. Get this oriented right. So one is going to go in here. One of these bars is going to go right into here. And another one is going to be bolted on to the plate. So there's a bit of asymmetry here at the bottom. So what am I going to do? I'm going to pound these bar ends in first so that it's all seated on these two. So give me a second. All right. So now, beautiful. That works. And this will be here. All right, so the 8mm, let's see which one I call out first. All right, so now that I've got this, one 8mm bar on one bar end, it's going to go right here on this plate. Now there's a front and a back to this plate. The notch is actually towards the front, so it's going to come over here. At the back is the flat part. And I'm going to use plastites to hold this bar end on. And the reason I'm doing this now is because the next piece I put on is actually going to cover these two screws, and so you can only get access to these two screws is to get it done ahead of time, and then you're going to cover them. So this is the only time we have access. And I prefer to put the bar in, prefer to put the 8mm bar in before we get to all of this. Before we, if I'm pounding down on this while it's screwed into the bottom and not supported underneath, I could do damage to that bar end, and so that's why I did it that way. All right, so I've got those in. Here's the motor standoff for the X. I believe there's a big assembly here. So I got the standoff. I've got, oh, this is kind of fun. So these two motors are both small motors. Now, one is going down through the plate just a little bit. I did that just to save some height. Now, it doesn't save a lot, but it saves a little. And so this will actually, let's see, which way do I go with this? This way. So I'm putting this on with 12mm screws, M3 screws. There's 3 of them. Come on. There it goes. It's not cooperating. All right, you. I wonder if I should have drilled out some of these. Oh, there it goes. Just had to push harder. So 3 screws will hold this motor together. There it goes. Okay, so I'm putting these this X motor standoff together. I got the wire coming out the back, so it's close to the printer board when we get there. Just getting this finger tight. Don't want to strip out that motor. Now it feels good. Now you can, on this particular motor, you can set your drive pulley now, but you won't be able to do it later. So I want to explain. You can do it now, but you can set the depth of it now because you've got access for the set screw. But once we button this down, you are not going to get access. Sorry, the phone's ringing. All right, so I've got this lined up. Now, is that the way it goes? I don't want to do this one twice. Yeah, that looks good. Basically, it looks like I push that up as far as it will go. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Now I could reverse it. I've noticed a little bit of bounce in these motors if you, like, there's a little spring if you push down. So I want to get every last bit of, okay, I like that. All right, so I've got my flat lined up with my set screw. Where's my, very important that this gets pretty tight. Then if you move it around, there's another one. So it holds on to it doubly. This is one you don't want to have to take the bottom apart. Okay, so now the other thing is, we're going to be putting this together, and you don't want to have to fiddle with this later, the belt, because it's hard to fish in there. So what I'm going to recommend is that, right after this stage, you kind of get the belt set where it's going to go, but I'll show you. So right now, I've got more plastides to mount this. Just looking for the holes. So 3 plastides on this X motor standoff. These are a little bit harder because we're going into such a beefy piece of plastic. Very good. All right. So my belt is right where it needs to be. Wish I had a good tip on how to keep this belt from, going the wrong direction. I guess you could zip tie. Well, we're just going to try our luck for now. Now, the other main part, besides the, this is about to go here and get bolted on with 3 plastites. And then we got, we'll put our motor on here, and this one is about to go there. So before I do that, I'm going to get this motor mounted here. This is a Z motor. It has the wiring coming out the back again, so it's close to the printer board. So I've got a couple of screws to put in here. Looks like 12 millimeter again. Let's see if I can bust those through here. Very good. Again, sometimes the plastic is, these are printing flat and the holes get flattened out just a little bit. So don't let it alarm you. It's going to work fine, but you just have to bust it through that flatness, and then you can. It's very precise, though. I'm kind of amazed. I always used to kind of think to myself, why are people doing, when you can do metal parts, why are they doing it in plastic? Like Prusa does, and Taz does it, and a bunch of other people do it, Airwolf and so on. And, for some, it's just never a good idea. What I mean is, for some customers, they never want printed parts. But there is the customer that it makes sense for. And for me, that means makers and education and kids and people with a very limited budget, which I was one of those guys back in the day that I was looking for a 3D printer. They were all too expensive. So if I can lower the cost of entry for a group of people by using printed parts, then great. Now, I am slightly annoyed by printed parts, to be honest. I don't necessarily, I like the novelty of them, but I use 3D printers for prototypers chiefly. And so when I go to build something for real, I've got all this metal equipment in my shop, I use metal. So when I was designing this kit, these are 3 more plastites to put together this frame, this Z frame. So anyway, when I was doing this kit, I thought, well, I'm definitely going to allow printed parts to be the start, and then we will allow people to upgrade. And it will be optional, not required. And if you want to upgrade to precision machine parts, then you can. So right now it's a choice. And I think that works. All right, I got 3 screws here. I had some plastites underneath here, 3 on each part. And now I'm coming through here with, I forget the size of the part. Where is it? Those are 16. These are M316s. They go through the plastic and into the metal. I love how it just aligned. But I'm going to be careful not to over tighten that. I'm going to do it by hand because I want to feel how tight it is. And when you use a drill like this, you can't feel. So now I switch over to the hand tool. Now, because that's going into metal, you have a tendency to just crank that down. I can't tell you enough. Do not crank that down too much, only enough. Now it's really starting to show the rigidity that it's going to have when we're all done. I'm going to zoom back a little bit just to give you a little wider view. Okay. So without my feet that I explained earlier, it wobbles a little because of this shaft. But that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. Belt looks like everything's aligning. All right, I'm feeling good. Now, we've got an Acme rod and a Z-coupler to put on here. Now, this is one of those parts of the builds that, you know, may be overlooked, but this particular Z-coupler is kind of interesting. It does have a ridge, like on the bottom it's 5 millimeter, but on the rest of it it's 1/4 inch. So you can slide it all the way down to the bottom, but if you did that, then this wouldn't be able to go in very far at all. You can actually slide that up as far as it would go, and that is kind of how it's designed to be made. But if you want to separate this from the shaft, you have a variety of options on how deep this goes. So I don't think it's worth getting in, you know, worrying about too much, but I don't want this up so high that it's going to interfere with my carriage. You can kind of see it over here. Oh, no, you can't. I'll move it up. You can see where we landed here. So I'm just going to mimic that. I don't know how to tell you how tall that is. But anyway, so that's what I'm going to be looking at when I tighten this down to that motor shaft. Looks like about there. Yeah, looks pretty good. Looks like it is pretty much even with, if you look inside, the shaft does come above that recessed for the 1/4 inch a little bit, but maybe 2 or 3 millimeters. Again, I'm obsessing over that because I don't want this to be in the situation where, you know, it can't be, you know, it can't go down far enough. So I think this should work. This is one of those a little bit finicky things about some of my machines is I use these quarter inch. And so when you put your set screw on, if you hit right in the groove, you're probably pretty good. If you hit right on the top of one of those threads, it could come out. So I always like to just test it real good before I decide, okay, we're done. Now it's time to, I've got these bar ends in, but you know, we've got to come through, we've got to set this in here, come through like this, and you know, it just doesn't work unless you take these bar ends out. The reason that I wanted to put them in before was I wanted to size them to the proper size, so when we do need to seat them, we can get them in there, if that makes any sense. So now that they've gone in there once, you should be able to take these out. I need some pliers or something. I need bigger pliers. But just be gentle and they'll come out. See? Kind of spirals out. Ta-da! All right. So now to put all of this together, I'm glad I left this to the last. So see what I mean? To put this together, you actually have to have it pass through here to get the Acme lead down through and to get the bars seated in the right place. So there's one bar. Two bar. And then our Acme rod. Which is fine if it has to go down quite a ways. And I'll just try to tap these in, see how it goes. I probably will support this over here. Doesn't look like they're wanting to push in by hand. So on this particular side, it's not a big deal because it's supported so well. All right, so how do we support this and hit it at the same time? That's the question. Here's what I'm going to do. I've put that other printed part under here as a support. Let's see if I can tap it in now. Excellent. Now I can take that out. All right. So the only thing I haven't done is haven't put these bar ends on top yet, so that's what I'm going to do. But right now, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to make sure that I've got this tight because I did loosen it to put it back on. So I'm just getting it to where I can see it and get access to it below here. It was the Acme rod on top that I needed to tighten. There we go. All right. Man, it's starting to look like something now, huh? That moves good, so here we go. Once again with the scary pounding the bars on. I should, you know what I might do? I might go out, because I have the right bit to, I don't know, I don't want to do something that you can't do. So I'm going to support this one more time and just tap this on the top. Awesome. Now I can just put these in. Well, that worked out good. More plastites. Feeling good about that. All right, so last bar end. And I have intentionally left off the handle and the plate here and here because you're going to have to do that. Perfect. Man, this is really going together well as far as like all the tolerances on all of the printed parts. Very happy with. Tight but not impossible. Even I always forget to turn that phone off when I'm doing videos. Like how everything's fitting and moving. Oh man, it's so hard to get water jet with printed parts, with machine parts or injection molded parts. What's machined on here? Oh yeah, the Acme nut. So we're using so many styles of manufacturing all in one piece, just trying to make the appropriate choice for each part. But you wonder, you know, all these tolerances dancing around, how are we going to do it where it all works well in the end? Well, you spend a lot of time drawing and building. All right, so that is, we're getting close. Now we're down to the X. So 8mm bars. Let's see, that's all the, I think that concludes our Z frame plate assembly and our X motor standoff, our whole Z-axis actually. Yep, we're done. Now we're to the base.